My name is Paisley. I work in finance, live alone in Austin, Texas, and spent my entire youth patching up the holes my family created. One Thursday evening, while eating the last bite of takeout under the dim kitchen light, I received a group message from the entire family. We think it's best if you step away from the family for now. No call, no explanation, just a thumbs up emoji from Aunt Sharon. I replied, "Got it. Then I'll be stepping away from the family emergency fund too." That night, I quietly shut down the account that had kept them afloat for 6 years. Have you ever been pushed out of your own family simply because you stopped at the right time? If you've felt that before, leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the next part, because this story is just getting started. I don't remember what time I dropped my chopsticks and ran out of the house. I just remember that night, my mom's call came in as I was about to shut down my laptop. "Paisley, baby, Eli's been in an accident. They said if he doesn't have insurance, they won't treat him." Her voice cracked, caught between sirens and sobbing. I asked where they were. She said, "The Target parking lot near 14th Street. Your dad?" He slumped over the steering wheel. I didn't ask anything else. Grabbed my purse, grabbed my keys, and drove out into the cold, wind, howling through the alleys of East Austin. When I got there, I saw my dad, a man who once held so much pride as a construction worker, leaning against the car like a lost child. My mom had her face in her hands, and Eli was curled up in the back seat, his shirt soaked with blood around his arm. I didn't ask why. I pulled out my phone, called the nearest private medical center, and swiped my personal credit card for a $12,000 deposit. As the nurse wheeled Eli away, my mom gripped my hand tightly. "You're the last light in this family, Paisley. I'm so sorry for putting this on you." It wasn't because I was strong, it was because I was used to it. I was the daughter with the financial mind in everyone's eyes, so it was assumed I'd know how to handle everything. Eli stabilized a few weeks later. They called it a miracle. But no one called to ask how I was doing. No one mentioned the $12,000 again. Then came the familiar tide. My mom was diagnosed with prediabetes. Her insurance didn't cover enough. I automatically bought her prescribed insulin. My dad lost his part-time job at the warehouse. I helped cover the car loan. Eli relapsed. I wired cash to keep the lights on. Then one day, Aunt Sharon called me in a whisper. "Paisley, I know you've helped a lot, but maybe we should set up a joint fund. Like an emergency account. Your mom, Aunt Rose, whoever needs it can use it, and you help us manage it, okay?" I still remember standing in the office elevator. My chest went cold hearing her call it a fund, like I was a loan officer. But I still said, "Sure, I'll take care of it." I opened a new account, under my name, set up automatic transfers from my own paycheck, bought expense tracking software, linked the bills. Electric, water, prescriptions, even Eli's phone service. At first, I planned to name it Emergency Family Fund, but I changed it to Firewall, because that's exactly what it was. The last wall standing between my family and collapse. Then came the string of quiet nights in my tiny apartment. I ate instant noodles, canceled my planned trip to Mexico, paid for Eli's private therapy sessions. They sent me their account logins, bank passwords, security codes, like someone handing keys to the pet sitter. Not out of trust, but to avoid responsibility. Aunt Sharon once messaged, "You're better with this stuff than us old folks. Help us out, okay?" Aunt Rose was more casual. "Oh, Paisley, if I'd been as smart as you back then, maybe things wouldn't have turned out so bad. Anyway, thanks in advance." No one asked if I was living off credit. No one asked which of my cards had maxed out. I remember once, sitting in the office, staring at the quarterly report, and suddenly the tears started falling. I couldn't stop, not because I was sad, but because I felt erased. No one remembered me as a daughter, a sister, or a 32-year-old woman with feelings. They only remembered me as the one who always pays on time. Once, I didn't pay my mom's internet bill just to see if anyone noticed. 4 days later, she called. "Sweetie, the internet's down. I've been trying to order my meds, but I can't get online. Can you check for me?" I logged in, paid the bill, and replied calmly, "It's taken care of, Mom." On the other end, she only said, "Thank you, honey." No one asked how I was, and I no longer expected them to. But the thing that made me start saving every bill, screenshotting every transaction, and storing emails in a folder called Receipts for Survival wasn't the money. It was the growing sense that I was being erased from the family narrative. I wasn't Paisley anymore. I was the fund, the insurance, the solution, and everything else, my emotions, my thoughts, my exhaustion, my pain, they never spoke of. Not because they didn't know, but because they knew and thought I'd endure it forever. I used to think that if I stayed stable, successful, generous, everything would fall into place. But no one warned me that in a family built on silent sacrifice, the quieter you are, the more they rely on you. Eli relapsed again while I was on a business trip in Denver. The moment I stepped off the plane, I got a text from my mom. 2 lines. "Sweetie, Eli's out of control again. The police called the house at 3 a.m. I cleared my schedule, postponed meetings, and flew back to Austin that very night. That time, I spent nearly $8,000 on an emergency rehab center. No one reimbursed me. Of course. The next month, Mom's electricity bill got frozen due to a bank error. I paid it like usual. A week later, my dad emailed me. "I'm sorry for not saying this earlier, but my credit card hit its limit. I can't keep up with a small garage loan." It paid that too, said nothing. I started eating discount grocery store sandwiches for lunch, 3 days in a row, instead of my usual office chicken salad. Canceled my gym membership. Stopped contributing to my wedding savings account. Alex asked gently once, "Are you sure we're still getting married in October? You seem so tired." I smiled, rubbed his hand, and said, "Just a pause. My family's going through a rough patch, but that patch never really ended." I started avoiding family dinners, not because I was angry, but because I was exhausted. Every time I showed up, I'd hear, "Paisley looks tired. Why so serious all the time? Girls in finance must always be wound tight like a clock. She feels like a stranger in her own house." I'd force a smile, place my homemade pie on the table, and sit down. But I knew I wasn't valued, only needed. They called me cold, distant, and a little arrogant. One time, Aunt Sharon threw a surprise birthday party for Aubrey, my cousin. I couldn't make it because I was handling a major client fraud investigation. That night, I received a 1-minute, 40-second voice message from my mom, clearly sent by mistake. "That Paisley girl, always using busy as an excuse, off by herself again. She's got money but no one to share it with. How's that not exhausting?" I didn't finish the recording. I stopped at second 42, and I didn't bring it up to her or anyone. Exactly 3 weeks later, I got a call from the pharmacy. "We haven't received payment this month for the insulin prescription. Would you like us to hold the order for a few more days?" I said, "No, go ahead. I'll pay now." I did it like a reflex, quietly, without thanks, without acknowledgement, leaving no trace except for the deduction from my account. And still, they called me too practical to feel warm. I once asked myself, if I disappeared one day, would they feel my absence? Or just notice their bills weren't paid on time anymore? I remember a weekend gathering at Aunt Rose's place when Eli blew up over me not lending him money to buy an old pickup truck. He shouted across the table, slamming his hand down. "You don't always know what's right and wrong, Paisley. Stop acting like you're better than us. 'Cause you've got money doesn't mean you get to look down on everyone." My mom quietly set down her fork, didn't defend me. Aunt Sharon gave me a side glance, like, don't make a scene. I didn't react. I stood up, refilled my water, and kept eating. But what I wanted was to stand up and yell. I don't have power. All I have are bills. From everyone in this house. And a silence none of you ever acknowledge. But I didn't, because I knew no one in that room was really ready to listen. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. I named it Someday. I started saving every bill, every transaction, every transfer, not to confront anyone, but to remind myself my exhaustion was real. And if one day I couldn't hold it all anymore, at least I'd have the truth. And sometimes, the truth is the only thing keeping a person from breaking. That night, I had just gotten home from work, my legs still sore after 12 hours of presenting to a new investment group. I made a quick bowl of soba noodles, about to sit down when my phone buzzed. A group text from Family Group lit up the screen. Aubrey, Aunt Sharon's daughter, my cousin, sent a photo of a French school logo with an excited caption. Best perfumery school in Nice? My dream. It's a short program, only $5,000. I know the family fund has helped Eli, Aunt Rose, and even your meds, Mom, so... Can the fund help me too? It's for my creative calling. Below, less than 3 minutes later, my mom replied, Go for it, sweetheart. No one understands young women's dreams better than your mama. If you want it, we'll make it work. A red heart from Aunt Sharon. A clapping sticker from Aunt Rose. I straightened up, set my chopsticks down, and stared at the screen. The people who knew nothing about the financial system behind that fund were now tossing it around like an invisible platinum card. A fund entirely funded by my own monthly income. A fund they never contributed a single cent to. I reread Aubrey's message 3 times. The phrase, "It's for my calling," pressed on my chest like a stone. The week before, I'd passed on a professional course. Eli's hospital bills were still unpaid. 2 days later, I hesitated over a winter coat. Mom's health insurance premium had just cleared from my account. And now, my cousin, who never attended a single fund meeting, never once asked how I was asking for $5,000 to study perfume blending in France. I locked my screen, finished the cold soba, and washed the dishes. A few hours later, I logged into the Firewall account, the name I gave the emergency fund, and looked at the balance. It could cover a few more months of Mom's insulin, close out Ellie's final treatment bills. But there wasn't a cent left for anyone's so-called calling. I closed the laptop and let it be. The next morning, Mom called. You saw Aubrey's message, right? Aunt Sharon's hoping the fund can help. You're the one managing it after all. I saw it. So, what do you think? I haven't decided. She paused a few seconds, then changed her tone. You know, Aubrey's a dreamer. No one else in our family chased something like that. If you help her, she'll never forget it. I looked at the framed calendar on my desk, where I had erased wedding day Octoc 14 3 months ago. I said, I'll think about it. And I hung up. The next evening, a new notification popped up in the group chat. Aunt Sharon wrote, Everyone, I've thought about it. Maybe it's time we let Paisley take a break. She's done a lot, but everyone has a point where they need to walk on their own. I think it's best if she steps away for a while, to give things room to breathe. Mom followed up, We all need quiet space. Everyone has their season. If it feels right to you, take some time away from the group and focus on yourself. Paisley. A nod emoji from Aunt Rose. A lavender flower sticker from Aubrey with the message, Sending you love, hope you find balance. Not one of them mentioned my name when discussing the fund. But when I stayed silent, suddenly I was the one who needed to be removed. I typed one line. Understood. I'll respect that. And will step away from the fund as well. I returned to my desk, opened my bank email, logged into the Firewall account. I canceled all autopay authorizations, unlinked every card, and fully closed the account. My name had been erased from the family, so they didn't need the fund I built anymore, did they? 36 hours after I closed the firewall account, everything started to collapse. Not with noise, but with quiet signals. Alerts, debt collection emails, urgent messages from places that had never once reached out to me before. The pharmacy called my work phone. The nurse spoke in a flat, rehearsed tone, like she was reading from a well-used script. "We're unable to process the insulin prescription for Mrs. Ellen Parker. It looks like the automatic payment method was declined. Would you like us to hold the order, Miss Paisley?" "No need to hold it. I'm no longer handling that payment." My mom left 47 missed calls in a single afternoon. Her voice, in the last voicemail, trembled, cracking under panic. "Sweetie, what's going on? Why is the bank saying the account was closed? I can't access the prescription portal." "Ely, he says the insurance isn't active anymore. Can you please call me?" "Just tell me what's happening." I didn't call back. Because I had nothing left to say. My entire life had revolved around keeping them from falling off the edge. Now I saw it clearly. They'd never learned how to stand. Because they never imagined I'd walk away. That evening, I had just finished washing my hands when a new email arrived in my personal inbox. The sender. A strange address, filled with random numbers like a spam account. Subject: Eli Foundation, application success notice. I thought it was a mistake, but when I opened it, I froze in the middle of my kitchen. A business loan application for $150,000. With my full name listed as the financial supervisor. Business name: Eli Foundation for Recovery. Signatories: Ellen Parker, my mother, and Sharon Meyer, my aunt. And the part that made my skin go cold: a forged signature in my name. Paisley Parker. Flawless down to the curve of the P. They had submitted a loan under the guise of a charity fund, and they used my identity, my signature, my personal tax ID. Without asking me a single thing, I printed the entire email. Page by page, laid it out on my dining table. I stared at the italicized Paisley Parker in the authorization line. The ink so perfect it made me sick. I didn't sleep that night. I sat there, like a stranger in my own home, reading the loan file again and again. The stated purpose: to support a recovery treatment center for relapsing youth in Austin and surrounding areas. Attached was a copy of a business license, which clearly didn't exist. I checked the federal registration system. No such organization, named Eli Foundation for Recovery, had ever been approved. They were building a ghost entity, and if I hadn't closed the firewall account in time, that entire loan would have landed under my name. In that moment, I understood. They weren't just dependent anymore. They were actively stealing my identity, trying to saddle me with financial ruin while gently removing me from the family. 3 hours later, I called the bank's fraud prevention department. A woman named Michelle picked up. Her voice was calm and patient. I gave her my name, the old account info, and explained my suspicion about the fraudulent loan application. Michelle was quiet for a few minutes as she reviewed the file. Then she said, "We actually halted processing on this loan earlier today. Our system flagged inconsistencies in the co-signer verification. If you hadn't called, the file could have moved into disbursement next week." I asked, "What would have happened if I hadn't closed the account beforehand?" Michelle replied, "Because your name was still attached to the fund, you would have been considered the guarantor and the entire loan would have been tied to your personal credit. Legally, you'd be fully liable if the business didn't exist." I gripped the phone tighter. Michelle added, "I'm really sorry, but it looks like someone close to you tried to leverage your financial credibility." I didn't yet know what step came next. But I knew one thing for certain. My family wasn't just a group needing help anymore. They had become a system. and I was the last link they hadn't removed before the con fell apart. I never thought I'd find myself filling out a fraud report with my own mother and aunt listed as the applicants. I printed the entire loan file under the name Eli Foundation for Recovery, attached screenshots of the forged signature bearing my name, and included the social security number that had been used, one I knew only a few relatives had access to. I compiled it all into a single PDF, attached it to an email, and sent it to the bank's internal investigations department. An hour later, I called the IRS fraud hotline to report the misuse of personal information tied to a fake nonprofit registration. The agent who took my case, a woman named Karen, listened intently when I explained that both my mom and aunt had signed the forms. Her voice didn't flinch with surprise. "You're not the first person whose family exploited them because of good credit. But if you have full documentation, we can open a civil investigation, and we'll flag the associated tax ID with fraud alerts for all parties involved." I thanked her. I don't know why, but the words, "You're not the first," made my throat tighten. I thought this pain was mine alone, but there were others like me, not betrayed by enemies, but by the closest people in their lives. That afternoon, I received confirmation from the bank. It read, "Upon review, we confirm that Ms. Paisley Parker was not present during the loan application process. Her signature was forged. The file has been suspended and escalated to the legal department." I stared at the bold line. Her signature was forged. A short sentence, but it hit with the weight of everything I'd buried. That night, I sat down and wrote in a journal. Not something I usually do. But I needed clarity. I wrote, "They didn't want me to step back. They wanted full control of the fund without me in it. They tried to separate me from the group, but keep the legal responsibility tied to my name. They aimed to make me a ghost, liable for a debt that doesn't exist. And when it all fell apart, they could say, 'Paisley signed. We didn't know anything.' A scheme. Organized, strategic, timed. And I, the only one capable of stopping it, was the one they needed to remove first. But let me connect the dots. They all told me to rest. Aunt Sharon was the first to suggest it. Why did my mom, the same woman who once cried and begged me to save Eli, send a heart emoji when Aubrey asked for $5,000 to study fragrance? None of it was spontaneous. They planned it. They moved in sync. And in the end, they erased me with calculated grace. If I hadn't closed the Fireball account in time, they would have funneled money into the Eli Foundation. If the bank hadn't reviewed the signature, I'd be legally bound to that loan. And if the application had gone through, I wouldn't just lose money. I could have lost the entire financial career I spent 10 years building. I wanted to believe my mom didn't know, that maybe she'd been manipulated, pressured. But when I reopened the shared family folder we all used, I found a deleted file from 1 week ago. Eli_Foundation_draft PPF. Deleted by Ellen P. I had no doubt left. I tried calling the landline at my mom's house. It rang, then went to voicemail. I opened my filing cabinet, pulled out all copies of my ID, bank statements, and confirmation emails from when I closed the account. I began organizing them by date. I opened a new file and typed the title, Identity Fraud Evidence, Case PP 2153. I sent a copy to my private attorney, the one I'd worked with during a corporate asset transfer years ago. One single note attached. I need legal protection in case this identity misuse continues. Please keep this information secure. I used to think the worst thing was being abandoned by your family, but no. The worst thing is being used until your very last breath, and still being labeled as cold and selfish. I never truly walked away. I ran. Right before they made me the fall guy for a scheme wrapped in the words, "for the family." That evening, I received an invitation to a family Zoom meeting. The sender, Emily, my cousin on Aunt Rose's side, The only one who'd ever mailed me a handwritten thank you card the year I paid her final semester tuition. The meeting title, Check-in after a week apart. I knew better. This wasn't a check-in. It was a family trial, with me as the defendant, and everyone else playing judge, witness, and jury at once. When I joined, the screen lit up with 10 squares, faces arranged neatly, like waiting for their turn. My mom sat in the top left, her lips pale and pressed tight. My dad paced in frame, arms crossed. Eli said nothing, but his face looked tear-streaked. Aunt Sharon wore a scarf and pearl necklace, lips curled in that polite but cutting smile. Aubrey had pink headphones on, her face pouting, like she was halfway through filming an emotional monologue. Emily was the one who spoke first. Paisley, the family wants to understand what's going on. Everyone is shocked and feels abandoned. But if there's something you'd like to share, now's a good time to explain. At last, the conversation had begun. Thanks, Emily. I have a lot to share. And this time, I have evidence. I clicked Share Screen, an Excel spreadsheet appeared, titled Firewall_Ledger_Final. In it were over 140 transaction entries, spanning 5 years. Insulin prescriptions, $12,341. Therapy for Eli, $7,800. Uber rides taking mom to the hospital, $86. Online self-study course for Aubrey, $1,200. Roof repair for Aunt Rose, $2,500. Temporary cash support for Eli after eviction, $1,000. 6 months of dad's phone bill, $490. And countless other small items, totaling $92,447. Not a single dollar reimbursed, not a single word of thanks acknowledged. Aunt Sharon broke the silence first. You kept records? What, you won a trophy? This is a family, not an accounting firm. I didn't react. I answered calmly. No, I kept them, to remind myself I wasn't crazy for feeling drained. A few blinked. Some looked away. Eli quietly wiped his tears. My mother's voice trembled. Are you saying we took advantage of you? I didn't respond immediately. I clicked to the final tab of the spreadsheet, where I'd logged every fund meeting, every expense request, every payment I'd made on their behalf when they forgot to contribute. I'm not saying anything. I'm just showing you how it all really happened. I've closed the account, canceled all authorizations, removed my name from all linked finances, and officially ended all legal responsibility for a fund that was never truly shared. My father squinted, jaw tightening. You're blowing this out of proportion, Paisley. When someone forges your signature to take out a $150,000 loan under a fake organization, that's not an overreaction, Dad. The cold blue light of our screens lit up each face. I continued. I've sent the forged documents to the bank and the IRS. I've contacted my attorney. From this moment on, no one in this family may use my name, financially, legally, or otherwise. Aubrey spoke up, her voice uncertain. I didn't know anything about that, Paisley. I just thought the fund was still active. You didn't know, because no one in this family ever asked how I was doing. I knew I had just wiped clean the illusion they'd used to cover what was really happening. Finally, I said, you might think I'm cold, ungrateful, even cruel, but I've only just learned how to survive. After spending my entire life drowning to keep the rest of you from sinking? I clicked Stop Sharing Screen. The display returned to 10 silent squares, now filled with scattered eyes and quiet confusion. After that Zoom confrontation, the family went completely silent. No texts. No emails. No apologies. I still went to work every day, finished quarterly reports, fixed slides for the next meeting, ate lunch alone in the break room, as if nothing had ever happened. Until one Friday night, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Area code? From another state. I almost didn't answer, but something inside me sank. So I picked up. The voice on the line was hoarse, like someone who'd been crying for hours. Pice, it's me, Eli. I said nothing. I know the loan was wrong. I know. Can you pull the file back from the bank? Mom's freaking out. Aunt Sharon's fighting with Dad, the house account's been frozen. Just tell the bank it was a misunderstanding, that it was the wrong signature, that something got mixed up. His voice cracked. Please, save us one more time. Only this once. After this, you don't have to do anything. You can pretend it never happened. That voice, those words, painfully familiar. Save us one more time. My mother last time. You don't have to do anything after this. How many times had I heard those lines? How many years? I slowly raised the phone closer and asked, Eli, did you know about the loan? A long silence followed, like someone holding their breath underwater, unable to surface. And then the call dropped. I knew enough. I knew what I needed to know. For years, I'd imagined the moment someone in my family would finally admit they were wrong. I expected tears, maybe regret. But there was only stillness. Not from emptiness, but from carrying more than I ever should have. That night, I opened my lawyer's email confirming that all documentation had been submitted to the IRS and the bank, along with evidence of identity fraud. I set my phone down, pulled up my film library, and chose an old favorite, Little Miss Sunshine. A movie about a broken family, not saving each other with money, but with honest acceptance. I hoped I'd stop being the one expected to carry everything in silence, then cast out like a stranger when I stopped paying. An hour later, a new message arrived from another unknown number. Mom fainted while talking to the bank. Can you reconsider? Please. Eli. I stared at the screen for a long while, then deleted the message. The next day, I changed my phone number. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night, without waking to phantom ringtones, echoing like ghosts of just one more favor. I arrived in Seattle on a day that wasn't sunny, wasn't rainy, the kind of weather people call neutral, but to me, it felt like an exhale after a storm. My new apartment sat on the 8th floor, with glass walls facing Lake Union, where the sunset glowed gently, never blinding, only warm. I bought a second-hand armchair from Craigslist, a cactus plant, and an ivory kettle. Each night, I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, drinking chamomile tea. No TV, no calls, no checking messages. I started working at a small independent financial firm. Smaller, but honest, where no one treated me like an emergency cash dispenser. No one said things like, Paisley's great with numbers, just leave it to her. Here I was a person, a co-worker, someone learning, growing, and being seen for her skills, not for her endurance. I didn't tell anyone about my past. In Seattle, I learned how to live without carrying my family's history, like a resume I never asked to write. No one asked if I had a brother with addiction, or a mother who forged her daughter's signature, or an aunt who once called me someone who needed a break. They only asked, do you hike on weekends or prefer staying in? Do you have a cat yet? This place is great for cats. I smiled. No cats, no hiking, but I loved being asked as if I were simply living, not a walking ATM with breath. One Wednesday evening, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know, but the name displayed clearly, KCB. I hesitated a moment, then opened it. Hi, you may not remember me. I'm Casey, Eli's ex-girlfriend. I know I have no right to say anything after all that happened, but I still wanted to say, you saved him more times than anyone ever should have. Back then, I didn't get it. But now I do. I hope you're living free, truly free. I don't know if I exhaled or held my breath as I read that message. I remember sitting on the floor, a sweater still unfolded in my hands, as tears rolled down my sleeves. Because for the first time in years, someone saw me. Not as the debt carrier, not the cold sister, not the one who walked away, but someone who had saved, held, and broken. And no one had ever called it by its true name. Casey was never popular in my family. They called her the girl dragging Eli down, the one who always complained, the kind of girl with issues. The last time I saw Casey was when Eli was admitted to rehab for the third time. Pale and quiet, she stood in the corner, eyes fixed on her phone. People passed her by. No one said hello. No one asked her to stay. I remember quietly placing a bottle of water in her hand, saying nothing. Back then, I never imagined she'd be the only one to send me a kind word. I didn't reply. It wasn't indifference. Her words had simply said everything I needed. I saved her number and wrote one note in the contact. The first person who saw me. That night, I changed my sheets, lit a lavender candle in the apartment for the first time. On the mirror, the sticky note was still there. The one I wrote during a sleepless night months ago. I don't need to prove I'm a good person. I just need to stop letting others define what that means. I read it again. This time, it didn't sting. It felt light. That day's seminar was one of the most important milestones in my new career. We held it at a small downtown Seattle conference center, where the soft yellow lights filled the room, and the chairs were arranged neatly, like the rows of spreadsheets I used to live inside. The topic: rebuilding personal finances after trust has been broken. Not something most banks like to touch. But I knew people needed it. I led the opening session, introducing models for transparent money management among close circles, especially when someone had been hurt by misplaced trust. I didn't mention my family, but every example I gave still carried the scars. Late-night texts, emergency bills, the promise of just this once. I walked into the hallway behind the stage to swap out my mic before the next round, and I saw her, Aunt Sharon, still with that soft golden perm, cream scarf, leather purse, a slight hesitation in her step. I paused, not in shock, but because I had learned. They always show up when something no longer belongs to them. She caught my eye, smiled, a very Sharon smile, friendly but measuring the air between us. "Paisley," she said, not too loud, not too soft. "It's been a while." I nodded. No small talk, no pleasantries. "I heard you're doing well here. Today's event, very impressive." I waited. And then came the line. I knew it was coming. "Everyone misses you. Your mom's been weaker lately. Eli's working part-time now. They still say, if only Paisley were here." She paused, then offered, in that default negotiation tone, "What if we set up a new fund? Nothing big, a small emergency fund. Something for peace of mind. All we need is someone who knows how to keep things together, like you used to." I smiled, this time genuinely. It was the kind of smile you give when the weight's no longer yours to carry. I said gently. "I already created an emergency fund, Aunt Sharon." She raised an eyebrow. I added, "It's called My Future, and there's only one person allowed to withdraw from it. Me." She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped. I walked past her, toward the conference room door. My hand rested on the handle. "No goodbye." I stepped into the brightly lit room as the microphone signaled the end of intermission. People returned to their seats. I saw a woman in her 50s with a notepad, a retired couple whispering softly beside her. I stood on stage and looked out. No familiar faces. And, strangely, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain anyone's absence. To me, freedom didn't come from leaving. It came the moment I no longer had to ask permission to live as myself. Have you ever been in my position? Not the best in the family, but the one who carried the most. The one always called when there was trouble, but cast out the moment you drew a boundary. I know someone out there is still holding that role. The eldest, who pays in silence. The daughter who knows better. The one labeled cold, only because you didn't break when they expected you to. If that's you, I want you to know, you're not wrong for caring. And you're not wrong for choosing to care for yourself first. If you're standing on the fragile edge between helping and being used, leave your thoughts below. I'll read them, and maybe someone else who needs your story will read too. Thanks for staying with me until the end. If you'd like to hear more honest, moving stories about family, boundaries, and healing, don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next chapters.